I believe I'm up next, so I'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Tina Potthoff, as the moderator said, and I'm very, very happy to be joining you during this time. And also a big congratulations on the 175th anniversary that you're celebrating this weekend. I work for Hy-Vee, and you're probably wondering, how does a grocery store fit into a lot of the historical conversations that you're having over the last 2 days? And really, there is a lot of significance that our grocery store has to the church. And I wanted to really quickly just go into our founder's history and really where it stemmed from, because our foundation, all of our 86,000 employees across 8 states in the Midwest, and we have more than 280 grocery stores, is really built on what our founders brought to the table. And it was to be kind and friendly. Here you actually see our Hy-Vee fundamentals that we give to every employee before we hire them. And it talks about dedication, having morals, and being caring and being honest and having ethics. And I truly believe that a lot of that stems from our founders. And so I wanted to go into a little bit of detail about them, because it's interesting that Lachlan was mentioning Lamoni, because we're very connected to the community of Lamoni. That's because our first headquarters, Hyde and Friedenberg, you can probably guess how we got Hy-Vee, but I'll go into that story in just a little bit, was actually located in the community of Lamoni. And we had a lot of help from the church getting started, actually. To provide you just a little bit of background, Charles Hyde and David Friedenberg were members of the church. They spent their early career moving from various towns in Iowa and Missouri. They both were farmers, and they worked at local grocery stores that were in the area. Eventually, they had a partnership with one another. Believe it or not, one was an employer and one was an employee. And then they eventually started to come together to form their very first supply store, which is located in Lamoni. And this indirect relationship really has carried to all of our employees. So I'm looking more at the present time than I am the past. But I want to mention some of the historical references, because they really do carry through our company and the policies and procedures that we put in place today. So just going through a little bit, this is actually one of the first drawings that we had of some of our earlier stores. And granted, they've grown in size, but this talks a little bit about where we're located. So if you're located in Alaska, and I know a lot of people are zooming in from all across the United States, these are the communities where we're located in. And like I said, we're in 8 states right now, but really had that start in Lamoni. Both men are our 2 founding partners, Charles Hyde and David Friedenberg, who were members of the church. They spent their early lives in Harrison County, Iowa, and really went back and forth between Harrison County and Lamoni. They were switching locations and kind of going back and forth. And just to let you know, not only were they members of the church, they were very, very active, and they actually were very active until their deaths, which they both lived very long lives. And still here at our corporate headquarters, we have their images and their pictures in almost every single one of our stores to really pay homage and respect to our founders. So in 1921, really that partnership began. And you'll actually see these are those 2 gentlemen right here, Charles Hyde and David Friedenberg, like I said, and they were very important to the founding of Hy-Vee. Eventually, we started to grow, and Charles Hyde and David Friedenberg started to expand. And so this is actually, as we call it, one of the first stores that we had at Hy-Vee. It's in Beaconsfield, Iowa, and still exists there today. I think Beaconsfield probably has a population of, last time I checked, maybe it's about 20 or so. It's not very populated, but we're still working with the community to take good care of this store. From there, there's a lot of things that ended up happening as we went into the 30s and 40s. These 2 gentlemen started to continue to grow the company, and we started to expand into different states. Originally started in Iowa and then gradually continued to expand. And they were all about employee autonomy, which is something that we still have today. And what that really is making sure that you are sharing with others, making sure that everyone is a part of your family, making sure that everyone is welcome. And so if you shop at a Hy-Vee store, you might call it your Hy-Vee store, or I'm going to my Hy-Vee or our Hy-Vee. And that's really where that lives on, is just people. You normally don't say, oh, I'm going to go to my Lowe's, right? Or my Home Depot. So, but with the grocery store, that just seems to have caught on. And it's because of the Hy-Vee family atmosphere that we've created, built on our fundamentals. So into 1936, you start to see that the company continues to grow. We start to award employee bonuses, continuing to share in the profits of the company. And this really, again, stemmed from our founders. and the fact that they said, we need to share, we need to make sure we're doing everything that we can to support the local community. And then as time went on, we actually started to see some additional structure that would come into the history of our company. And our first president was actually David Friedenberg's son, Dwight Friedenberg. And he started to lead the company and became our first president and CEO. Since then, we've only had 4. And with a company that just celebrated its 91st anniversary this year, that's a little unheard of. There's also a lot of companies that don't exist into their 90s these days. Many go away after just a couple of years, or maybe they make it to 50 or so. But in today's changing retail market, we're happy to say that we're staying true to our roots. So again, this just shows you a little bit of what those first stores look like, right? It was sketched out on a napkin, and they started to talk about what it was going to look like. We started to have 23 stores in Iowa and Missouri as time went on. And then from there in the 1940s, you can see we started to develop some new innovation. Frozen food became a thing with us. We also had overhead music that was playing, fluorescent lighting, and shopping carts. And believe it or not, there's actually an interesting story with shopping carts. Hy-Vee was one of the very first grocery stores to start shopping carts. Way back in the day, people actually look at them as baby buggies, and they did not want to use baby buggies when shopping for their groceries. It's very much like it is today. If you use an online service, or if you use Hy-Vee Aisles online service, which is our online grocery store where you can have someone select your groceries and then deliver them to your home. People actually wanted to create their list and then hand it over to the grocer. And one of the things that the founders of the company were trying to influence people to do would be to use these baby buggies, or shopping carts, as we call them. So Dwight Friedenberg, who was actually our first company president, decided to put chewing gum and candy bars in the shopping carts to entice families to utilize the shopping carts. And then from there, they just started to stick, and other people started to use them, and other companies started to use the shopping carts as well. From there, from Lamoni, our headquarters were moved to Sheraton, Iowa, and we still have a large existence in Sheraton, Iowa today. It is in the southern part of Iowa. We currently have our headquarters located in West Des Moines, Iowa, but Sheraton is still a major part of the company because our distribution center is still located down there. The other thing that we became known for was a supermarket style store, and that was in Centerville, Iowa, where we actually had sections of the store we could service individuals and customers. Also, we're one of the first to actually create ads and deals for customers so that they would know what they were expecting, and actually having official grand openings and events at the stores to bring the community together. So as you can see, the community connection was very much alive and well, and still continues to this day. We're one of the retailers that actually has probably the most events when it comes to actually connections to the local community and giving to the community as well. And I want to make sure that I could talk all day about Hy-Vee, so I want to make sure I'm being cautious of time. But the one thing I did want to mention here real quick is just to get to some of these slides that talk about things that we currently have going on here. Like I said, both founders retire. I do want to talk about the name Hy-Vee though. So a lot of people say, how did Hy-Vee get its name? Because it's a very unusual name. And so just one tidbit of information, and this really does go back into, I think, the roots of who we are, is that Charles Hyde and David Friedenberg were part of that name. So the Hyde comes from Hyde and the V comes from Friedenberg. There was actually a naming contest for our grocery store chain to see what we should name it. We didn't want to keep it a supply store anymore. We wanted to get a little bit more into a more fun name at this particular moment in our history. And they had a employee contest, and the employees actually came up with the name Hy-Vee. There were 3 employees that actually came up with the name Hy-Vee, which is the last 2 names of our founders. So there's a lot to be proud of with that. And then just to wrap things up, I know I'm going to go through some of these slides a little quickly, but it's very important to understand that at Hy-Vee, the donations are still live and well. The community involvement is still very important to us. And I truly believe, as I said before, a lot of that comes from their involvement with the church and just passing it on. As we've talked about, employee ownership. So when you come to Hy-Vee, we actually say you're an employee owner. So we share our profits with our employees, and we also make sure that they're paid on a quarterly basis when it comes to extra bonuses and any additional profits that the company might receive. So, and I truly believe that a lot of that stems from Charles Hyde and David Friedenberg, but I can answer some questions at the end of this conversation. I just wanted to give you a sneak peek at kind of the success story of one of the members of the church. So thank you very much.